Hello, everybody, and welcome to Wisdom and Wealth, Financial Clarity for Families in Transition. In today's episode, we have one of our blended family discussions with my husband, James Guillen. And today, we call him Jim. Apparently, everyone else calls him Jimmy. And today, we're going to be talking about when you are dating, and that dating relationship is moving to something more long-term. When is it appropriate to start talking about finances? So we'll talk a little bit from my advice as a financial advisor, share some stories about how Jim and I both handled it, and then are interested to hear what Mark has to say about it as a third party moving forward. So welcome, and we appreciate you being here to Wisdom and Wealth. Let's get going.
This is Donna, and this is Jim, each with a family that had to begin again. As they've brought their worlds together, they've learned a lot about blending families and finances along the way. Now, they're here to help you take on this new chapter with clarity and confidence. This is Wisdom and Wealth, financial clarity for families in transition.
Hey everybody, welcome into the podcast. Donna, Jim, Jimmy, and myself, Mark, here to talk today about investing, finance, and when's a good time to start talking money, y'all, whenever we're dating somebody. So that's going to be the fun, interesting conversation this week. We've probably all gone through it for folks who are listening to the podcast and or watching on video form. So why not have a good chat about it? Because that's the way the world is right now, right? And things change so much. So seems like a pretty good topic to discuss. When's a good time to talk finances in the world of dating? Guys, welcome in. Jim, thanks for being here, buddy. How are you this week?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, Mark.
Always good to have another set of opinions and some thoughts on this. And of course, Donna, how are you?
We're doing good, Mark. Thank you so much for having let's see, your experience moderate this discussion with me and Jim.
There you go. I'm the moderator. I'm the question lobber, as we have established. But, you know, folks, as always, if you got some questions, need some help, please reach out to a qualified pro like Donna and the team. If you need some help, find her online at seftonfinancial.com. That's seftonfinancial.com, SEPHTON financial.com. Get yourself onto the calendar for a consultation and a conversation about your situation, especially if you're going through like this blended family kind of scenario, or if you're going through, you know, just whatever. Donna's a certified financial planner, been doing this a long time, and a certified divorce financial analyst as well. So great resource for you to tap into. All right, guys. So let's get into today's topic. So talking finances when dating. Let's just talk about your story a little bit if you want to. Like, when's a good time to do it? When did you guys feel comfortable? I mean, I imagine it was a little different, Donna, since you were already like, you know, kind of into this path. But for regular folks, like, when's a good time to have this conversation?
Yeah, and I bring this up because so many of my own clients are widows moving back into the dating world after a while, as well as divorcees, right? And some of them come with their own money stories. And sometimes you want to share, right? When you're in a dating relationship, you feel so comfortable, you have conversations, but is it appropriate or is it not? So we'll kind of bring it back to when I started dating. So Jim and I weren't always Jim and I. Jim was the person helping me flip my house or work on my house when probably year 2 into widowhood. So Jim actually witnessed me dating somebody else. A little awkward to talk about. But in that relationship, I believe as a widow, I shared a little bit too much about my financial stability. And if I look back on it now, I think I got taken advantage of a little bit because that person knew about the stability I had on my finances. So then moving forward with Jim, like it was a little bit of a mute topic, even though we still had a decent understanding of where both of us stood financially. But it took me a while to peel back the layers to say that. And so I'm very guarded as a financial advisor because not only are we managing the topic of money, but we're managing the behavior and our relationship with money with our clients, right? And so often if I hear my clients share that they're in a new relationship, I actually have a real casual sit down, maybe an out to dinner, just to kind of talk it through and share my own experience, which is why I thought it was good to share the story.
Yeah, I mean, and there's going to be a difference too, right, from between men and women and how we view money. There's lots of different, and there's stigmas that go along with that, right? So there could be a lot of different things. Jim, what's your take on this when first dating? When you first started dating, moving on in your life, did you feel comfortable talking about it right away? Did you think you should, or did you hold back?
Well, it was easy for me because I was just coming off a divorce and there wasn't much to talk about in the financial world on my end.
Okay.
But
did you share that? Did you say, hey, I'm coming off a divorce, or I got taken to the cleaners, or whatever that might be, right?
Yeah, I just was honest from day one. In fact, even after my divorce, I didn't date for a year.
Okay.
So it was just to rebuild. I didn't want to start dating someone and get in a relationship with nothing to offer, or I needed that time to rebuild financially. I just didn't want to come with any, with my pockets turned out. I didn't want it like that. And I wanted to have some stability, to build on. I was starting over again, but I knew how to make money. I'm a worker, so it wasn't really an issue to me.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So early on, I think Don and I were we kind of knew each other. So that was a little different. We didn't meet on a dating app or anything. We knew each other. So we kind of knew where we were at and how we viewed things.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now, so for me, just kind of sharing my 2 cents. So I married later in life. I was in my 30s. My wife it's actually her second marriage, but it was my first. And she met me through my business. She was coming into my coffee shop, right? So she knew I had a business or whatnot. But, once we started dating pretty quickly, I felt the need to tell her about the stability of the business. I thought, hey, once I identified to me that I thought this could go someplace with this person, I felt kind of a moral obligation to say, here's the truth reality of my financial situation. It might look like it's great because I own, a couple of coffee shops, but here's the reality of it, and I think that's an interesting place for people to be. They wonder, should they do that? And Donna, I imagine that's probably part of what you're coaching when you're talking to people, I guess, maybe don't blurt it out on the first date, but maybe once you've identified that there's something there, maybe.
Yeah. And a lot of it is, and you can divulge a little bit of, I've been an example. You can share, I've been in my career for the last 20 years. I'm at a really good position in my company, right? Good example of that. You don't have to give specifics on exactly how much you make, or is there stock options? You can say broad things like, I know I'm going to be good on retirement if I just keep working for the next 10 years and saving well. That's sharing that piece of stability. And I think if we kind of talk about the roles in a relationship, many of times for the gentlemen of the relationships, they might want to share what they have as an income level so they can share that I'm able to help take care. I'm able to help provide with this family. I'm able to contribute. And it's very important to them to make sure that the person on the other end knows that, right? To keep that relationship growing. I understand it. But as a financial advisor, I'm always encouraging people to talk in broad strokes in the very beginning, right? You don't need to get into particulars. You don't need to be showing your taxes to people. You don't. You just don't.
That's pretty funny. There was a comedian years ago. I can't remember what his name was, but I remember the bit that he used. He said, dating should come with its own set of playing cards. And when you're sitting down, you have these very specific cards and you go, hi, I am narcissistic and blah, blah, blah. And you flop them out like these little cards, right? And you kind of show what you're almost like tarot cards, what your personality traits are. Could you imagine, the first date, it's like, hi, I'm such and such, and we're having a nice time. By the way, here's my tax return.
Yeah, right. I've coached a few clients that were further along, right? Like they were considering buying a property together. And there was some situation in one of the participants' past financially that they weren't proud of. And they really didn't know how to tell it to the other person. So we played a game called Swap the Credit Report. So every year you can go on to annualcreditreport.com. You can download a free copy of your credit report. You can actually get it from each of the providers. You can get 3. And so they actually downloaded it. And on that credit report, it doesn't show you your little FICO score like, you can get from one of your credit card apps. It actually shows you the list of all of the accounts, how long they have been open, what the credit is extended on them, how many late payments there might have been. Now, this was a well-established couple moving to buy property together. And I was like, all right, let's do this. We both print our credit reports. We trade and you go to separate rooms, right? Grab a bottle of wine if you have to, and let's dissect it. Here's a highlighter, and we're going to come sit back at the table and we're going to talk about this. The credit report tells you your history, right? So ask those questions. Some of those impact because we say in our former relationships, you can have a joint account, right? And somebody could overdraw it, right? Or make a late payment to a loan. Even though it's one person doing it, it affects both your credit reports. And for so many of our divorcees, when things quote unquote go bad or before they officially file for divorce, that's happening. There's some credit abuse going on for many. So talk about that, right? Like you might be really sad about it or not want to be forthcoming because you felt like you were naive, right? But talk about it with that spouse so they really understand what they're walking into, carte blanche. So I think that's a great quote unquote strategy for when you're really serious and you're moving into an investment together.
Interesting point. Jim, as men, sometimes we do feel, especially if we're starting to date someone, when I met my wife, she already had a small child, right? So I wanted to make sure that I was, kind of coming at that as forthright as possible as well, because there's a little small person involved here. And I want to make sure that I'm doing the right things by this person, especially once I identified that I felt like it could go someplace. And I think as men, sometimes we feel like, I'm not saying that women don't, I'm just certainly giving it just from a male perspective, that we want to make sure that we're, kind of being, I think, hopefully as honest as possible, because, maybe it is a family situation. You guys already had kids. Is that kind of give a level, I guess, maybe to your honesty with things as well? Did you kind of feel like saying, hey, this is exactly where I'm at? And did that make it easier to have those chats?
Yeah, I think, I can't speak for everyone, but I think, as a guy, I don't want to be dependent on someone. I don't want to be another child. I can take care of myself and
right.
You want to contribute, overall. I'm saying not everybody, but,
right.
To me, I think it's better to do it early on, because maybe the person doesn't want to, maybe if you wait too long till it's real serious and then you drop a bomb that you owe $200,000 in credit cards.
That's a good point.
You just waste a lot of time if that person's like, I don't want to take that on. And
that's a great point.
And it's respectable if the person's like, not for me. I'm too late in life to worry about that. Or,
yeah.
So I don't know. I think earlier the better.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. All right. Donna, you were going to say?
I just, to Jim's point, very good point. So, I like mindless TV at night before I go to sleep, right? So Jim and I were just watching, was it 90 Day Fiance? Is that what it was?
And you're mindless.
Mindless, right? And the woman wanted a post-nuptial. And they're sitting at the table with the lawyer, and he was pretty much saying, well, all right, like, let's see everyone's finances. She's trying to protect the value of her company should her fiance or her husband from Ecuador leaves. Well, during that conversation, all of her debt comes out. What was it, 100,000, Jim?
100,000, yeah.
And the husband was like, whoa, wait, right? You're trying to protect yourself, your value of your company from me. I need to be protected from your debt. Like, it's a whole different conversation. And that's actually one of the reasons this whole topic came up. Like, wow, like, they had to go through a lot of financial disclosures to get someone over to the States, right? When did that discussion get lost? Like, when did they not have that discussion? He shouldn't be shocked a year later. So I love that you say that, Jim. Like, you don't want to go too far into the relationship and then drop a bomb. Well done.
Well, just like that show. I mean, if you think about it, the immigrant from Ecuador who came with nothing was better financially because he was at zero. Mm-hmm. She needed to make up 100,000 to get to zero.
Okay, that's a good point, right? So, even if you're starting with nothing, you're at zero versus negative.
Yep.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, okay, let's say you're in the casual stage. How do you kind of walk into some of those things, Donna? Is that, is it maybe something simple like, do you like to travel a lot? Or as you're getting to know one another, hey, how did your parents do? I don't know about you, but my parents fought about money all the time, or, something like that. Is there some icebreakers that maybe is a good way to kind of start walking into that?
Yeah, I think the way you even said the icebreakers, like, hey, tell me about growing up. How did money feel for you guys, right? Like Jim and I often talk like about the section of Philadelphia that he came from versus where I came from. We have what's called the Boulevard, and the Boulevard divided where we both were from. And just knowing that, you're like, okay, a little different experience in how we were both raised with money.
Yeah, if you're from the same town, right, you could certainly get some ideas just from that.
Exactly. As well as the fact of how I had some defensive up because my mom got divorced, right? As well as his mom never worked, right? So how was she cared for? Or she worked when you were in high school, correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So asking a little bit about those discussions, I think another great way to bring it up is if someone, let's say, is driving a car. Like, oh my God, was that like, how long did you save for that car if it's something that they love, right? When did you get it? Like, tell me the story about getting that car or that beach house, right? Or vacation family pictures. Like, oh, when did you go there? You can start to get a frequency on how often they traveled. Like, did you have a lot of leniency in work? right? To be able to travel that much. Could have been that he or she were laid off for 3 months. Therefore, they had a lot of ability to travel. So I think that's a really important way to bring it up, is asking the story behind money or behind history. Go ahead, Jim. You're about to say something.
No, honestly, I think it'd be pretty easy to see if you're paying attention.
Okay, good point.
If you're at the person's house or their apartment and you see a lot of things, a lot of expensive things, if they're throwing money around, you kind of know what they do for a living already. I think you can get a gauge. I think people ignore.
You can draw a line.
I think people ignore stuff because they don't want to ask questions. But, and that doesn't mean anything. They could have an inheritance. They could have a trust. Who knows? But I think it would be a red flag if you go in someone's house and you see just a million expensive items lying around and
the job doesn't really support that, maybe.
Yeah. Like I said, I was a carpenter. If I was pulling up in a Bentley, there's probably some questions.
Right.
It's
right.
just,
well, you don't know. You could have built, the Taj Mahal.
That's true.
And I think actually a lot can be found out through your friends or the people that you go out with, right? So you surround yourself usually with the 5 people that you want to emulate the most, right? So, or find out people that might be in the history of that person for the last 10 years, right? And let's get in there. And that's like, oh my goodness, like, he's so happy and fun to be around, right? Like, tell me about one of your favorite experiences, right? And sometimes you can really, like, the stories start to evolve and you can put the pieces all together.
Well, I think, is it important in today's society? Yeah, probably. And some people watching might say, well, money shouldn't matter about the relationship if you care about someone, blah, blah, blah. I get all that. But, Jim had a good point. Depending on the stage you're at in your life, it does have to be a factor, I think, right? Because maybe you've got some health scenarios that needs to be part of it, because that could come with some significant financial responsibilities as well. So, maybe it is, we are kind of, changing in that regard, that maybe the sooner is better because there's just a lot at stake. And again, factor age into it. And Donna, when you're working with a lot of folks who are divorced and moving into maybe a new relationship, and often later in life, gray divorces are way up. The numbers of people getting, into relationships in their 50s after getting divorced. There's a lot more at stake than when you're 22.
Yeah. And it's true, to that point. Many of my clients of whom are older or had gray divorce or were widowed in their late 60s, moving in their 70s, and have another opportunity at a relationship, maybe they're not willing to commit to that relationship because of finances, right? And that's something that needs to be brought up front, because maybe the other person has a really high value in the sanctity of marriage, right? And so maybe that's not a match at that point in time. So again, broad strokes when we're talking. When we feel like it's going to get somewhere else, then you can start adding some of those details within. But it's also, you will always have concerned parties around you, friends and family, right? Who are always wondering, are you okay? Are they protecting themselves, right? And it's okay to be like, hey, what do you think? You've been around that person. Like, what's the vibe you get, right? And almost, wondering if it's an okay time to bring that up. Like, what did you think? What did you think if I brought up, like, why did he retire at 58? Right. And that would be fine. It'd be fine. Like, don't just wing it on your own. Talk to either a trusted financial professional, talk to a trusted friend. That's really a big part of it. Like, you can make stories in your mind real quick. So.
Well, okay. So final question then to the financial, side of this. Let's say you've already started having the conversations and you're getting where you need to be with someone. At what point do you bring in a financial professional, right? Do you wait until you're married, or do you maybe start having these questions, still while dating and saying, hey, I've got an advisor. Let's sit down with them. What do you think from that standpoint, Donna?
I am such a huge fan of financial planning sooner rather than later, right? Have a financial professional sit down and start probing these questions. You won't be looking for the right time. You're sitting at a financial professional's table. That is the time, right? Knowing that we're going to sit here, we're going to talk through it, and making sure the financial professional is a good match for you both. It's almost like if you go to a marriage therapist, right? And they've been sitting with your wife forever, and then you walk in as a husband and you feel like there's already been sides picked, right? Make sure that everybody is comfortable at the table. The financial professional should have a conversation with the other party before they come in. Like, so tell them how you work, tell them how they engage, tell them what types of questions to be prepared for. forward over a sample document or a data collection sheet. Start that conversation at home, and then the financial advisor will actually probe a little bit deeper. But I think when you get to the point of wanting to move forward with relationships and you have a financial planner on board, you can really strategize for maybe a timeline, right, of when to blend families, right? Or maybe how to start titling things. Should you be moving in together? Because someone is giving up maybe their own asset, right? Or becoming very vulnerable to the other person. So have someone guide those conversations, and there's ways to protect yourself with life insurance, title things correctly, or just having a joint account of shared responsibility. And let a financial advisor help you get there sooner rather than later.
All right, good stuff. So when is it time to start talking finances when dating? I think the consensus maybe, guys, here then is broad strokes, maybe right off the bat, pretty early on, and then detail as you start to kind of see how things are evolving. Is that fair enough?
I think that's very fair, creating
Absolutely.
a little roadmap in between.
All right, there you go. If you got some questions, need some help, reach out to the team at Sefton Financial. Reach out to Donna and Jim and their whole team there. Again, SeftonFinancial.com. That's SEPHTON Financial.com. Or, of course, you can also just reach out to her, give her a jingle. We'll have the number up on the screen, 215-948-3945 for those that are listening in audio form. And speaking of, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on Apple or Spotify or YouTube now. You can click on the little heart button there or the subscribe button and the notification bell to catch new episodes when they come out. And check the show notes for also some links and descriptions in there as well. And we'll see you next time here on Wisdom and Wealth with Donna Kendrick.
Registered representative offering securities through Cetera Financial Specialists LLC, member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services are offered through Cetera Investment Advisors LLC. Cetera is under separate ownership from any other named entity. Sefton Financial LLC and Cetera are not affiliated. Sefton Financial is located at 8200 Flowertown Avenue, Suite 4B in Windmore, Pennsylvania. Zip code 19038.